my understanding is the Danish church has been fairly good at maintaining the more classic liturgies elements, but the preaching would be pretty liberal. I have never seen any church that has said no to women's ordination that have a problem with the issue of same-sex marriage. You better just keep fighting in that area. That is the one that the very best defenses for liberal theology. As I said before, you can train Navy SEALs online. And if you're going to have pastors who are capable, an online course is not enough. Now, the more young pastors we have, the more different role models I have, the easier it is for us to recruit new ones and say, there's room for you.
Oh, we are? Okay. Well, Bennett says we're live. So welcome back to On the Line. And today we have the privilege of sitting down with Bishop, let's see if I can get this correct, Bishop Torkild, and then, you're going to have to remind me your last name.
Masvie.
Torkild Masvie.
Yep.
And you're the Bishop of Norway, and also Iceland, and as we were just talking about, talks of how do you begin outreach to Greenland, right, which has its own challenges and such. So,
yep. And the Faroe Islands. It's all part of one church and one country during the Reformation. Mm-hmm. So we think if anyone are going to take responsibility for that, it's us. We're part of that.
So what's your background? You were telling a little bit of it, before, but what's kind of your background growing up that led you to the place where you've been a bishop now for 20 years?
I grew up in Argentina and Japan. My father was a Norwegian seamen's pastor. In those days, there were very many Norwegian seamen around the world in Norwegian boats because we were a poor country and many Norwegian men were on crew on Norwegian boats, and there were Norwegian seamen's churches in the harbors to provide both Christ and a positive alternative to the bad stuff in the harbor. So I was 13 years old when we moved to Norway, where my father became a parish pastor in Church of Norway. I'm the oldest of 5 siblings, and so I then, after some high school years, studied theology in Oslo and became a pastor in Church of Norway, a military chaplain, and a university and high school worker in the Norwegian Lutheran InterVarsity movement before I became a missionary to Israel, where we lived, me and my family, for 10 years. I got my kids during that time. And doing fundraising for that work, I moved to the U.S. I was the CEO, but we had to expand fundraising. And while in the U.S., I discovered that churches, there's no perfect church, but my church in Norway was burning down spiritually. So I resigned as pastor in Church of Norway and became member of the LCMS in Illinois, in a church there, because I saw that the LCMS is not heaven, but it is a church as it is in this world, if it's followed the word of God, the inerrant word of God, and I thought this is paradise for me. So I had to choose then either to remain as a theological refugee in this country or to move back to Norway with my 3 kids and wife to help restart the Confessional Lutheran Church that was there 1536, but is no more there. And that's what we did, 2005. And then from then, we have worked hard for about 21 years now.
So what is one of the areas that I'm very interested to explore is just, so what's going on you can obviously speak to Northern Europe, right? But there's some rhyming with the rest of Europe of what's going on with Christianity and particularly Lutheranism there. Like it's not the Lutheranism of 100 years ago. Is that correct? That you're kind of surrounded by it?
That's right. It has been a very rapid deterioration where it was state churches, and then political parties could control the development of the church by appointing bishops. And in addition, with the theological institutions being state institutions, we got teachers that were no good. Mm-hmm. So it meant that we got a generation that was less confessional. And then with the change in society and the whole thing with feminism and same-sex marriage and everything, we were about 100 of my class in theology, pastor study. I am not aware of anyone other who publicly now will express opposition against women pastors or same-sex marriage. It may be that if you ask them one-to-one, they say they're unhappy with it, but they haven't been willing to take the expense of saying it from the pulpit. And if we don't preach from the pulpit what is in the Bible, the congregation will have the same opinion as the rest of society after 5 years. So in many ways, we had, at least in Norway and Denmark, much in Faroe Island, Iceland less, and not in Greenland, we had the Pietistic movement, which is not only bad. I think people need to remember that.
Yeah.
There is much good from that, and that revival movement helped us to care for the individual, and the individual to understand there is a personal relationship between me and Christ, and also that Christ is for the other nations. Norway used to be the biggest mission country in the world. If you look at the size of the population, how many missionaries? When I was young, I think it was about 1,000 missionaries from a population of 4 million. I mean, I've been to Israel. My sister has been to Ethiopia and Tanzania. My cousin was in China. The head of the Adventist pastor training program is born in Madagascar. It's normal. We all have cousins who's been a missionary somewhere. Mm-hmm. So there are many good things like that. And most of the pastors of my generation are children of that revival movement. But then things, we are like a school of fish. We go together. I think if many of my friends have become LCMS pastors, they've been good today. But there could be some LCMS pastors, if you drop them in our pool, they would have taken color from the bad stuff, because it is tempting to stay with friends and be friendly, and then don't take the consequences of speaking out what the Word of God is saying. So we have Denmark and Norway is very parallel when it comes to spiritual heritage. I mean, from the viewpoint here, very many see us as the Nordic or Nordic, Baltic, etc. But if you zoom in, you will see there is actually a West Nordic and an East Nordic tradition. We share a little bit with the East Nordic. We were very happy for Bo Gjertz and Rosenius, and also the Lestadian movement we share. But the rest, Denmark, Norway, is like twins. We have the same heritage. We were one country for hundreds and hundreds of years, together with Iceland and the Faroe Island. And it is in Denmark, their development has a special. It's interesting that Denmark, they have parallel to us, but the authorities there were more friendly to those who didn't fit the majority view. So they allowed in Church of Denmark that the minority would have certain rights to arrange their own worship services in the sanctuary, paid by the government, with a heated church, with the organist and everything, unlike Norway. So there in Denmark, you kept kind of, in many ways, the bad development has gone a little slower there, especially when it comes to liturgy. The Danish sermons may be very liberal, but you don't touch the liturgy, while in Norway, we were much more flexible on liturgy. over the years. Iceland has had some revival movement, but less. But with the Faroe Island, it's very rich revival movement. You have a prayer house in every village, a big prayer house with many, and they are strong. While Greenland, they never had a revival movement. That's only the state church, and that has turned liberal. So there's no other groups there.
So if I were to travel to Norway or Denmark and I were to go to just the liberal Lutheran church, what would that experience be like? Maybe in two ways to the question. One, experientially, what would like the liturgy, what would the church life look like? And then second, theologically, what's their theological understanding? You mentioned gay marriage and women's ordination, but I'm sure it seeps out into a lot of other areas as well.
Right. So in the state church in Norway and Denmark, my understanding, I haven't visited the Danish church recently, okay? But my understanding is the Danish church has been fairly good at maintaining the more classic liturgies, elements, and also hymns. They're very proud of their heritage that way. But the preaching would be pretty liberal. And of course, it's everywhere open communion, completely. In worship attendance in Denmark, I don't know the latest statistics. Worship attendance in Norway, in Norway, I think it's about 70% of the population belongs to Church of Norway. It's dropping very fast because the new generation is not baptized the same number as the old ones, and people are dying. So you have that, you have immigration, and you also have new churches like ours. We're small, but others are picking up. So it means in Church of Norway, you would hardly see young people. They have more coming now than before, but still, it's very few. And there is very few coming to church unless there's something extra going on. So very much of the pastor's work is dealing with funerals and weddings that you may have and some confirmation, etc. But a church like, as you know it here in the USA, you would not experience in Norway, in Church of Norway.
So the theological expression, are they going to have any notion of like judgment? Are they going to have any notion of like articulating sins? Or is it just going to be kind of affirmation, positive thinking? Like what would the sermons feel like?
Well, I haven't listened to many of them. That's the truth.
Yeah.
So, but we have till now had a policy of having almost exact same, what do you call it, lectionary?
Yep.
Where we preach over the same text most Sundays as Church of Norway. And it is our dirty trick division. Because people will then listen to one sermon from Church of Norway, and then they listen to what we have, and some people start coming to us then. Because the Word of God is pretty good. I mean, what we do is we have added some verses that they've taken away because they don't want to include the taboo subjects, okay? You cut them. But anyway, you will in Church of Norway have there is no law with regard to sin. And that's why there's not the same preaching of forgiveness. For example, one liturgical element in the beginning of the worship service is not that I have sinned against you in thoughts, words, and deeds, but the confession that I've done something good and something bad. Okay. And I'm thinking, what kind of confession is that? Anyway. So it is being emptied, in my opinion, for what true Christianity is all about.
What's your notion of the Lutheran World Federation?
Well, I think they are causing big harm, especially in the young churches around the world, because with money, they put pressure on the churches to adjust to their practice. They are, to some extent, successful in introducing women pastors. More difficult to introduce same-sex marriage. There is where some of the young churches would be tempted to shift over to International Lutheran Council as the competitor to Lutheran World Federation, because they see they disagree fundamentally with that part. So I think the Lutheran World Federation is causing tremendous harm.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that kind of women's ordination is like a gateway drug? Like, it always seems like that's the first thing that people give in on, and then give it 10 years, and then they give in on same-sex marriage and other things.
I agree 100%. When I was a student, we organized, I belonged to the Confessional Lutheran students at this Lutheran School of Theology, an independent institution in Oslo, the biggest at that time. We invited Bishop Bo Giertz to do lectures, and his subject was to believe, like the apostles, the woman ordination subject as the case, as the test question. And it caused headlines in the Christian newspapers afterwards. But he is and was absolutely right. I mean, you give in to that, there. Also, if we would just drop the theological side here now, just look at what kind of counterforces do you meet in women ordination and in same-sex marriage. If we say statistically that there is one pastor per, let's say, 1,000 people, one pastor per a segment of 1,000 people. If you say only man can be pastor, you kill the dream of one woman, and then you have her 10 closest friends and family who are furious. You have an opposition of 10 people. Well, if statistics is correct that 2% of the population have feelings of same-sex attraction, by saying no to same-sex marriage, you now have 2 people who feel not that their career is gone, but their happiness in life is gone. That's how they view it. And they, each of them, had at least 10 friends who are as furious as them. Now you have 20 out of 100. I mean, the thing is, the fight you're doing in women ordination against, to hold firm there, the storm you're heading for, if you've given up that, no way you're able to stand against it. Just from numbers. And I have never seen any church that has said no to women's ordination that have a problem with the issue of same-sex marriage. It may be, but I just don't know about it. So I think you better just keep fighting in that area. That is the one that the very best defenses for liberal theology.
Do you? Well, I'll get to this question in a second. What other like pressures have you noticed, right, that get pushed on confessional churches, right? In other words, if we assume, which I would assert, right, that the devil is at work behind this, right? Sure. Whether it's these big organizations, as you said, with money that come in and they maneuver and they pressure or whatnot, or whether it's just kind of the psychological and the social pressures that kind of rise up from the bottom, right? That the devil has a strategy and he wants to unwind and unwork a church. So it ends up like most Lutherans in Norway and Denmark and, many places in the world. And here in the US, right, we have the ELCA and LCMC, which kind of sits there in the middle as well. So what other tactics does the devil use to try to work against the church to get you to start to move away from a proper kind of theological understanding?
Well, one very the authorities try to control us with money. In Norway, every church received the same support per members as Church of Norway. Islam gets it, Buddhists, even the atheist group get it. And then you have to report yearly if you are having equal number of males and females in the board, etc. And the more and more. For every year I fill in that report, they get more and more specific, more and more details. And I have now you tick off, do you discriminate? And it says, if you say no to women pastors, you discriminate. So I have to say, yes, I discriminate. They define the wording. And at one stage, they will say, you don't get support anymore. And I think they try to create financial dependency of that. That's why we never use that money for operating expenses. We just put it aside for funds, for building funds, because they cut it one day and that doesn't matter. However, you need to realize also, as long as we are registered, everyone gets some kind of tax benefits for some of the money they give to us.
Mm-hmm.
And we also get refund of a VAT for everything we do. The moment we're out, there's nothing of that money. So I do think money is a temptation to adjust. And I once began on an article trying to look at the development of theology, looking at taxation. Why is Canada more similar to Europe spiritually than the US? And I wonder if taxation is the thing. Is you tax people so hard that there's less money to give. The government wants to use your money as their own money and hand out as a gift as if it was theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And then the politicians, we get feminists and others into politics who want to decide how my money is being used, and that is how. So I think money is a very big danger for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Other dangers for our development, I think when we get generation 2 and 3, especially 3, because when you do startups, it goes by itself. People who don't like what we do won't come. Well, if you grew up here or you're third generation, this is my church. I just don't like where it is now. I need to change it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's when the problem comes. We've seen that to other groups in Norway.
Mm-hmm.
That's later generations because they feel ownership.
Mm-hmm.
So the most important thing to keep this, keep us on track, I think, is pastoral education, where we need to have inerrancy, infallibility of Scripture, and Confessional Lutheranism taught to pastors. So that, and then you need actually to keep the pastors together after they are ordained. We had a church fellowship talk with another church, and they said, we have a good system to check that our pastors are kosher. But then we send them out, and things start happening where they are.
Mm-hmm.
So for that reason, I thought, hey, this is dangerous stuff. Because if the pastors start drifting away, what happens then? So that's why we have a weekly Zoom meeting for all the pastors, and you have to. You can send a message, I'm sick today, I can't come, that's okay. But you have to show up every week in order to maintain that community, because when we start congregations, we start in new sites from nothing. And that's why we can't do our pastor training online. You don't train Navy SEALs online.
Mm-hmm.
We need pastors who are so well trained we can drop them behind enemy lines and they know what to do. But they are surrounded by hostile people, among hostile people. So we need then to keep the fellowship there, so we are on track together and keep an eye on each other.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I was a little late for the meeting today. I had a Zoom meeting from a Starbucks to Norway, where the regular time for our weekly Zoom meeting for all the pastors.
So your pastors have to be pretty strong and courageous. Is that correct?
Yes, really. They are very well trained. They have brilliant brains and brilliant hearts. And Church of Norway would offer them a way better, higher paid job, full-time. I offer them a 40% paid job, and they have to find another part-time jobs to do together with it. When the local congregation is capable of paying them more than 40%, they get more. But it is really the elite we've gotten on board now of our pastors. And we are a tiny church. We have, if you include those in Iceland, we have about 180 members in total. We have 10 pastors and 10 pastors in training.
Mm-hmm.
That's a ratio of pastors to congregation members that's unique.
Mm-hmm.
But that's...
Yeah, I would take 10 Navy SEALs over just 100 lightly trained military men, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you notice? Maybe you haven't thought about this too much, but this is something we think about all the time, right? Because you look out at the world and you see things like Denmark and Norway and Germany and, I mean, Japan and Australia. I mean, just the list goes on to where kind of this onslaught of whatever you want to call it, just, you know, a broken Lutheranism, right? That's been undermined, and it just destroys a whole area, and you wonder how this corrosion happened, right? So we always look internally, or at least, you know, the group I'm plugged into, right? We're always just kind of wary of where do those tendencies, where can we see those tendencies in our own church body, right? Because we're not immune from that. So I'm wondering, are there certain theological or other things that you can see from the outside for like the LCMS or LCC in Canada that where bells go off, right? Where you see little warning signs and you go, you better be careful of that.
I think there's a structural challenge. That is the congregationalistic structure you have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I think it's so built into the DNA of the two churches that it is as difficult to change that as removing weapons from society. I mean, it's a part of the identity, because I'm telling my Norwegian friends, in our system, we have one pope, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
In the LCMS, every senior pastor is the pope
mm-hmm.
in the system. So it means that you then have more difficulties in order to kind of functioning as one unit with one voice, etc., because you get different groups, people, pastors connect to each other, to like-minded pastors.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is a challenge, and what can be done, I don't know, but I know that your seminaries are very, very, very important. My guess is that the continued fellowship afterwards is as important.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm an outsider. I only lived here 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a tourist, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right there. I mean, I would give a lot of credit to the grouping of pastors that I'm good friends with, and we dialogue about things on a regular basis. And
sure.
I learn a lot from those conversations, and I'm always recalibrating, right, based on the information and conversation. So
right.
That's exceedingly helpful. Yeah. Let's turn to the seminaries, let's back up. So what other things do you see? And then I do want to talk about the seminaries, because I know that's kind of an important thing for
what
you.
What other
like warning signs that you would see where ideas or different trends where we need to be very wary, because they seem like first steps that lead you down a road that ends up like something like the Church of Norway.
Oh, signs for here?
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think I know enough to give a good answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in northern Illinois for 3 years, traveled around, met pastors, etc., but still, in the big picture, a very small segment.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. What I do see some places is that when worship number is going down, there seems to be sometimes some kind of a panic and trying to put some new things in the worship in order to attract more people.
Mm-hmm.
I do think Jesus said in his sermon about the sowing and the 4 different kind of soil that it's not that if we do things right, people will come to faith. Our job is just to continue sowing, and so we need to preach. And as I told yesterday in worship service where I visited, we always use liturgy. Liturgy works. We start congregation with 3 people. You cannot do worship service with 3 people with contemporary worship service.
Mm-hmm.
I had 5 times I worship service for 1 person showing up. That's where we start, and we grow from there. So when I see how young people are interested to come to what I would consider the raw core of what this is all about, I think some of the baby boomers in the U.S. don't understand that if they want to reach out to the new generation, perhaps they should just go back to the classic history you have of classic liturgy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you will benefit very, very much if there is the same worship style wherever you go, because it means if you have a member that moves from A to B, they will very often want the same style, and they may end up in another denomination because they go for style, not for sermon content. And
yeah, I think you're onto something there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it is statistically true, that in Lutheran circles and a lot of Christendom, that young people, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for something that's timeless, something that doesn't feel like a fad, and I think that is a disconnect between the generations, My fellow millennial pastors, they see that. Like they understand that their comrades, and if you go down to Gen Z, it's even stronger, right? That's not 100% number, but like that is what the majority is looking for, particularly men who have walked away from the church historically and are now coming back.
Right.
That is what they're looking for, but there's a big disconnect there there's a lot of kind of leftover baby boomer ideas of, we need to go with the culture. We need to match the type of music, all this kind of stuff. And it's just, this isn't why you do things, but it is disconnected from the actual numbers that we're observing, right? That's not why, right? But it is at least a data point to say, okay, this is maybe one reason for you to reconsider kind of this direction that you've been moving.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's go to seminary education. Right. So I'm interested, you explained a little bit of this before we started recording, but just kind of the importance of that, the seminaries, both Fort Wayne and St. Louis, for the process that you have for training pastors, right? And leading towards ordination. And you mentioned before kind of online education and some of your thoughts there. So I don't know how much you've paid attention, but obviously there's been a lot of discussion in the LCMS about heightened alternative routes or even fully online alternative routes. I don't know if you've been plugged into any of those conversations.
I've heard
rumors.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of interested to hear your perspective.
Well, as I said before, you can train Navy SEALs online.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to have pastors who are capable and have gone through the formation of being able to stand almost alone in the startup of a congregation where they are in hostile territory, an online course is not enough. The way we do it in Norway, we need to come up with ideas. How can we provide high quality education where there's no expense in tuition? Because that is Norway.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot become accredited because, first of all, it is very expensive. Secondly, if we're accredited, we need to follow state laws, which means I need to accept any student who applies. A jihadist, transgender, whoever. then I don't get the environment for the formation part. Secondly, if I hire someone to teach, I cannot fire them. I mean, you get automatically tenure in Norway.
Really?
Yes.
Day one?
Day one,
Whoa.
if you're hired.
That's wild.
Okay, but it means that you have a good person who goes through a crisis and they change opinion on things and they're not in line with what you want. You can't fire them. So for that reason, we found it better then to find the best institutions we could see and then do supplement program. Because we decide there, from the viewpoint of the government, we don't exist. We can do what we want. And then we do, it's like if you're very poor, you find out that you can actually make a salad by free stuff out in the wilderness. And then you put your money in some spices to make it taste the way you want. You don't need to be confessional Lutheran to teach Hebrew or Greek.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's stuff there we can make use of. So what we do is we have a supplement program during the 3 years in a BA program and 2 years in an MA program, both in Oslo and recently also in Bergen. We have 2 sites now with about 10 students in total. And it means then that we arranged with us an exchange program, Fort Wayne and St. Louis. So our students will go as a part of their Norwegian institutions program to Fort Wayne or St. Louis and transfer credit hours back home afterwards. And it means that a combination of a friendly scholarship at Fort Wayne or St. Louis together with scholarship from the Norwegian state makes this year in the U.S. just slightly more expensive than if they did it at home. So, and that year in the U.S. is so crucial that I say I will not ordain anyone without that year, because that is our detox program for liberal theology and Pietism. It is very, very important, and we are very thankful for what our people have received at the 2 institutions. I mean, LCMS should be very proud of what you have in those 2 institutions.
Yeah, I can see how that could be a crucial year. Now, is the English barrier, is that a big barrier? No, it's not. Okay.
No. English is taught from first year in school in Norway, and we're so few, there's no dubbing in the films. Only subtitles. So even, I mean, in northern Norway, I had a brief time 2 years ago as a teacher in northern Norway. And the kids were, when they played outside in the breaks, they were speaking English to each other.
Okay.
I was really concerned for the Norwegian language.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you notice now within your church, within the confessional church? And maybe right before that, how would you define confessional Lutheranism?
In our case, we define it as a church that follows Lutheranism as described in the Book of Concord. We, Denmark, Norway, didn't have the Book of Concord in our language. It was Carl Paul Kaspari that translated it to Norwegian when he became professor of theology in Oslo, this German Jewish confessional Lutheran. So it is fairly new historically in the Denmark, Norway. The Danish king didn't want it in his kingdom. So, but still, whether you have the book or not, you need to be in accordance with that. So that is for me the simple definition.
Yeah. So in that confessional church now, what kind of things do you see? What's the journey been like over the last 20 years?
Our small church?
Yes, yeah.
Well, we started in the living room of my brother 20 years ago. We worship today, 20 years ago, in the living room of my brother, his family, my family, and a bunch of students. And we were working closely together with where I came from, Northern Illinois District. And at that time, it was for the headquarters of the LCMS, okay, that Northern Illinois District was involved.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for have some kind of accountability, we put into our first bylaws that were to be changed when we were bigger, into our first bylaws, I had to submit in some way to the Northern Illinois District President.
Mm-hmm.
If not, we would have become like autonomous. Yeah. Actually, in the beginning, I asked the LCMS, is there a district we can be a part of?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have English district covering Canada.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why don't you have a district covering some other countries till we are big enough?
Mm-hmm.
But no. So anyway, we after a year, we incorporated. Then I had to resign as a member of Carroll Stream, Northern Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
I was member there when we started in Norway. And then we started the group in 2005, 2006. We incorporated 2007. We started the supplement pastor training program.
Mm-hmm. So at that point, you're the only pastor up until
sure.
Then. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
But then we get 3 other pastors on board that all are at least as mature age as myself.
Okay.
But they're not paid. So one was my father.
Mm-hmm.
So he's 30 years older than me. He just died in November. And then it was another that has been head of Adfontes pastor training program. So he joined. And then we had one that became pastor with us from Norwegian Lapland. He had been defrocked by the king because of theology and consecrating another bishop. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's what we had there. And then we were working with the Adfontes program, and we did some startups that didn't work very well. And then suddenly there has been a breakthrough where we have, within the last 7 years, have gone to many churches. Yeah. So what we do is when we started church by looking at the map and say, what university city do we need to start in? If we know there are 2 people there, we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start traveling. We fly to there. We have worship services, and then prepare the ground for a young pastor to come when there's more than 5, 6, 7.
Mm-hmm.
I can't send a young pastor when there's 2. They get depressed. I know I'm not that terrible preacher that I take it personally that there are 2.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
So I'm built for that startup stage when there's nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm happy with it. And then when we kind of produce pastors, we have prepared places where we have begun the startup thing. So there's a little group to relate to.
Mm-hmm.
So we, now we have an ordination a year and we will double in size over the next 7-8 years, I think.
Which basically means that you've got one more opportunity to plant a church, and then 2 more opportunities to plant a church. Like ordination means that you now have the opportunity for another church plant.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Every new pastor, not only one, every pastor has to have one church and another worship in the evening, 2 hours drive away.
Okay.
Every pastor has 2 congregations.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the same sermon.
Yeah.
And then you more quickly are able to get funding for more than 40% paid. Then you have 2 groups giving.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can increase to 50, 60, 70. I want full-time pastors. But I think they were willing to do it because I did it. Until 2 years ago, I was traffic manager at Oslo bus terminal. I had to trade shifts to do my travel.
I think I watched your speech at Lutheran Church of Canada in 22, and
okay.
you said you had to trade a shift with someone, right, in order to come in and present at the Synodical conference.
And I think the young pastors have been willing to do it without the question because their bishop was doing it himself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the last 2 years, I retired from the bus terminals, which means I got some pension from there that covers my time.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's paradise for me. All time is my time for church, which is fantastic. But anyway, they know that they have a church for Sunday worship every Sunday, and then every second Sunday in the evening, it's another church somewhere else. That becomes like a startup for a new pastor one day.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone is kind of having one base, and then assisting the startup. So the more we are, the more faster we double.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How important do you think the tentatio aspect is? I was just having a conversation with Dr. Jeff Boyle.
Okay.
A couple weeks ago, he was out here recording, and he just brought up a good point that I hadn't thought of. And we were just talking about a certain theologian who, has impressed both of us, Dr. Bill Weinreich, right? And we were just talking about how valuable he is. Yeah.
Weinreich?
Yeah.
I know him from Norway.
Yeah. And he's great. But one of the points that Jeff Boyle mentioned was, he said, one of the things that made him who he is, that's tough to replicate, is he had a lot of tentatio throughout his experience, right? And that's something that you can't, I can't artificially create tentatio, right? That's thrust upon you. But in situations like what you have, there's just tentatio built in. So how important is that kind of for the formation of individuals?
Probably is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I haven't reflected so much about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it does create, if you're aiming at Navy SEALs, right? It does create, that's a necessary part even of the training for Navy SEALs.
Right.
You're going to go through difficulty. It's going to hurt. You're going to be challenged. You're going to fail. You're going to question yourself, and then you have to kind of push through that and lean on God through that.
Right. But what is so fantastic now, you see, here's the thing. We had trouble in the beginning getting some young men to commit to going into this work.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, I can't do it because I'm not like Torkild Masvie.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm a bulldozer. But now, the more young pastors we have, the more different role models I have, the easier it is for us to recruit new ones. Is there's room for you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you need to find out what is your strength, and we'll try to make use of it. But they get inspiration from each other because, we every week gather and they share what has happened last week. Half of them have been on the news.
Probably not for good reasons.
No, but they're answering very well.
Yeah,
and drawing new people.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the young ones in training now, because since we have congregations we can send our students to now, we didn't have that before.
Mm-hmm.
They can come and learn from the older, the young pastors who they studied with 7 years or 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now they can visit them and see how things are going, and learn from them. And there is a fellowship every Monday on Zoom. We have 1 hour and we share one after the other what's going on. And do you know the one in the very north? He has actually his own statistics. He writes the temperature, how freezing cold it is, and it affects the worship attendance immediately. It's almost you add the two numbers, it's constant. The colder weather, the fewer shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but anyway, they share joy, they share sorrow, and in the beginning, we had a number of years. It was really opposition, and people ask, who do you think you are coming here from another country? And I said, you're absolutely right. This is completely wrong. Someone else should have done it, but they didn't do it. And for the sake of salvation of my kids, we have no alternative to do it. But now we are established as we are known. We are so known that we are officially, by one of the former bishop of Church of Norway, called the smallest Lutheran church in Norway, which means we are on the radar screen.
Yes.
And it's so annoying, it was needed to be mentioned and written in the newspaper. But we have prominent members of our church, so we are on the radar screen, and we are much more in the news than our size would.
Did you say that there's a formal Nobel Peace Prize winner or someone on the board?
No. We have the deputy chair of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. He's a member of our church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got to be a great resource.
he has made himself a great resource. He's opened the doors into very famous, important Norwegian podcasts where we are. Our senior pastor in Oslo is have been guest a number of times, with the result that literally every Sunday there are new people coming to visit our church in Oslo and other places also sometimes. Some remain, someone just visiting one time, but we are known, which is, now is a tailwind, because when years back, me and my wife said we need to pray to God now, because it has been so much wind against us. We need some tailwind in sailing, And now we have tailwind, and now very much.
And you mentioned earlier that a lot of this is young men. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, it was always young men when we started up different places, but the numbers are going up. And we have so many young men that I really would like to see if we can have ways to add more women, because I want these to find each other and marry.
Yeah.
But we have young men, and they are seeking our church, but they also seeking the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church. They want the historic, the classic, the authentic. They don't care that there is no musician playing. It's liturgy. And they want sermons that are brutally honest, raw. That's what they want. So it's a fascinating development. It is.
So what's your hypothesis on why young men and not so much young women? Is that a societal thing, or those?
Something is going on in the world. I know it's the same in Norway, Iceland, Finland is the same. And I think I read some papers from the US.
It is, yeah.
The same here. So there's something going on, and I was not prepared for that 21 years ago. I was not prepared for it. What I had expected was my age group would join that have been complaining about Church of Norway all the time. No. There's always a reason to remain a little longer. But for the young ones, they don't care at all. So, but time is working for us. Some of the young ones are turning older, so we got the more average, but age in our church. But we're still, I think, about 10 years younger average in our church than Norwegian society.
Really?
Yeah, we are young.
Yeah,
I hardly see worship at that. Well, we do have some places where we have more mature age, but where we start up, it's young.
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing in the U.S. Do you think feminism has anything to do with it? And do you think it still has? In one way, I think it has divided the sexes in a very unhealthy way. Because I think you've seen. I wish I could remember some of these statistics, but I think that you've seen even in the U.S. that I think overall still the women still trend more liberal. Year over year, that still seems to be a trajectory. I could be wrong on that, and then the men certainly are moving more conservative, and that covers an understanding for things like traditional liturgy. It even moves into things like politics and whatnot. So it's an overall ethos shift, and I don't know if feminism is kind of at the core of that, where like it's pushed so hard that it's kind of driven a wedge there, or. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it takes proper male leadership, right, in order to attract women. I know there's a pastor, Mark Preuss, and he talks about he's done college work for a long time in Laramie, Wyoming, and his experience has been that. He's a very confrontational type individual, right? He just kind of speaks bluntly, right? So at first there's kind of an appalling, but then second, there's a little bit of an adoration, especially even from kind of some of the female professorship there, right? So there is I won't tell some of these stories, but anyway, yeah, there's been, and I think there's something to where like all of a sudden they taste like, oh, there's kind of just true masculinity or something like that. But if that's absent, and if generationally that becomes absent, especially as society kind of moves in a direction, then at first glance, women kind of repulse against those kind of moves in masculinity and such that you're seeing in the young men. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think you're right. I have not studied deeply the things you speak about here, but my observation is that the men that come to us it's like a reaction.
Yeah.
A reaction to being forced into something that is political correct, but it's not in sync with nature, not in sync with history, not in sync. And then, and since, as I view it, these young men are lonely wolves, they don't care that it's unpopular what they say, which makes them a very strong force then. Yeah. Because if you have people who are fearless, you can then suddenly change everything. Mm-hmm. And when their number is growing, I think political parties that pick up that thing will gain, and we may have a shift in society.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think even, Bennett, do you know these numbers? I feel like you would know these numbers. I think that Gen Z is the first generation now where there's been a big shift against gay marriage.
Okay.
Bennett, have you come across those numbers?
I believe it.
You believe it? Yeah, look it up. I think, well, while you're looking that up, there's been some other shifts. I forget the guy's name, Burke or something like that. A good friend, Stefan Gremmens, has been just kind of posting this guy's stuff. He does really good demographic studies and such.
Okay.
Heath Curtis, he's the district president of Southern Illinois. And so he, I believe, commissioned this guy, and he did a big study kind of the LCMS, and that kind of moved him to where now that's kind of his thing. Now he does kind of, not just for the LCMS, but for churches and things. Okay. And, so for instance, boomers that grew up with both parents going to church, they had something like a 73% chance of staying into the church. Okay. For both Gen Z and millennials, if both of their parents go to church, they have an 87% chance of staying in the church. And I think the Gen Z one is especially impressive because the only data we have from Gen Z are them in that category of time where they're the least likely to go to church historically. So it will likely trend up even over the next decade for Gen Z, because they're going to enter into that stage where they get married, have kids, and that draws a lot of people back into the church. Okay. Right? So there is this tendency that we're seeing for the younger generations that men born in the 2000s. Yeah, this is probably it. This is Pew. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, those are some statistics. So at least the title of this one, men born in the 2000s are far, which would be Gen Z, right? Is that kind of the cutoff? So for Gen Z, they're far more likely to hold conservative views on LGBTQ rights compared to previous generations and women of the same age. If you scroll down, or wait, this might be, right there. Found that 71% of men born, go up just a little bit, in the 2000s believe same-sex marriage should be legal. Comparatively, 77% of the men born in the 1990s and 73% born in the 1980s support same-sex marriage. So I mean, it's gone down in a big way. Same with abortion. Well, here you go. So in this, they've got it divided between men and women. And if you look across all of this, right, between abortion, transgender, gay, lesbian, homosexuality. Now that I've just listed all those names, YouTube's going to drastically shadow ban this episode. But yeah, there's a shift in all of these where the men are trending far more against the legality of abortion, against the acceptance of transgender marriage, homosexual marriage. So that's one aspect. But then, what's the other aspect we're looking at here, Bennett? Okay, actually, go back up a little bit. I'm just trying to figure out what these graphs mean. So So if you were to compare the 90s to the 2000s, abortion should be legal. Interesting. So the men go down, goes from 67 to 64%. So they trend a little bit of that boomerang effect. In fact, the first boomerang effect, right, if you look at going back all the way to people born into the 1940s, you get the first boomerang effect. However, when it comes to women, it moves up still, right? So I think, Bennett, you might be able to plug this in for the visuals for those watching on YouTube. But for abortion should be legal, men in the 1990s, 67% say yes. Those born in the 2000s, 64%. So that boomerangs. On the women's side, those born in the 1990s say 70%, or 70%. In the 2000s, it's 74%. So that's kind of backing what we're talking about here. Homosexuality, same trend there. Gay marriage, same thing there. That's probably the biggest shift there. So yeah, all of that basically just kind of supports that.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah. That there's a boomerang effect in the men.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would believe it's the same you would find in Northern Europe.
Yeah.
I think so.
If I remember right, I don't think they're seeing quite the shift in Australia. It's a little bit more in the West than America. And I'm not sure about Europe, although I've seen, not necessarily data, but I've seen certain things that would support that. There's a trend, at least in the UK and London. That's probably the only one that I've actually seen. I don't know if I can call it like hard data, but at least I'm supporting evidence that that trend that we're seeing in America is maybe also there in the UK. I can't speak anywhere else. Yeah. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. That was kind of a long, little deep dive into data.
No, well, it's encouraging to see that there is a shift with the new generation that, and I think there is, in some political environments, is a fear for this shift. They see that the battles they thought are won perhaps are not permanently won. Yeah.
Yeah. Who was it I was talking with recently? Oh, Brian Barlow. We actually just mentioned him on a podcast a couple weeks ago. He's a good guy. He's a pastor out in California who lived the homosexual lifestyle for a period of time. I can't remember. It might have been 15, 20 years. Left that lifestyle and is now a Lutheran LCMS pastor and a great advocate for speaking accurately and correctly. On the flip side, there's another guy, I can't remember his name, but you know, he was just out publicly speaking and just doing an atrocious job of it, like trying to pave the way towards the types of things that you're seeing over there in the broader church.
LCMS pastor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Retired, but
okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that just got taken down, actually. It was up for a while, and there's a lot of feedback for that, so I think it just got taken down, and I don't know what else is. Anyway, Brian Barlow is a great voice on this topic, right? And we'll have him on here at some point. But he was saying, because he studies this a lot, right? But yeah, he was saying that even outside the church, there is a massive cultural shift that he's seen in. He referenced a lot of different areas, but even talks about like corporate dialogue and corporate marketing. How there's been massive shifts in the last couple years, where they used to push this, and now they're just backing off pushing it, right? So that's a good data point, because if they're doing those things, they've got a lot of money. They're studying this. The money means something, right? And they know that their audience is not buying into this narrative quite as much. And for a lot of these companies, they're marketing to younger people. So obviously, those numbers that we just looked at, it's not as if like it dropped to 20% or something drastic. But a boomerang effect means something, like you said, sales or wind in the sails, right?
Yeah.
Like once that gets going, it keeps moving.
Yeah.
And yeah. So you guys are positioned well, I would hope.
Yes, and
the truth is usually positioned well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We just need to maintain the steady use of the Bible and the courage to stand for it. Yeah. Well,
courage multiplies, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As you said, that's the importance of the brotherhood
aspect. It is very important. Yeah.
I'll hop off a phone call with somebody who's more courageous than me, and I feel more courageous, right? And I've got some extra wind in my sails for a couple of days, right? So that's an important aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what else do you see in the church, or what kind of what opportunities and what roadblocks do you see before you
in our church?
Yeah,
the opportunities are that we have many young men that are entering the pastor training program, which means that we can plant more congregations. The goal of our church is that 90% of the population should have access to one of our weekly worship services with maximum 60 minutes drive.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we plant the congregations. Of course, the first big percent is easy. You do it in the capital and then suddenly you have a high percent. So, I mean, for every extra percent, it's more and more and more work.
Mm-hmm.
And more than 90% we don't think is possible. People are living on islands and they will have to follow live streaming, and we can go have communion in the midweek with them if they can't travel.
Mm-hmm.
But with the number of young men willing to enter this program and with a steady focus on teaching, giving, tithing,
mm-hmm.
I think we can manage. We get some start help from friends in the U.S., but we need to stand on our own feet.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge I cannot predict, but I would think that because we're so ambitious, if we get financial difficulties, where there will be hard for us to provide the basic salary for pastors, etc., it can cause tensions that are painful.
Mm-hmm.
I think the key for us are the pastors. I think that's a difference between a Lutheran church plant strategy and the Reform. The Reform say you gather 20 people, then you have a church. We put the pastor with the word and sacrament and say, now we have a church.
Mm-hmm.
But it means the pastor is very, very important there. And also, actually, the wives. They have the most difficult role of all. Because they are not really qualified to any official position, but they're paying a big price, and they have to move to a place where there's no one else in their life situation. I mean, they may have the kids, and they are the first family, and what other kids to play with, you share the values with. That's for me one of the most important things to take care of the wives and the families, and that's why we have a summer camp that I hope can be some kind of a spiritual oasis for the families.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because in the end, for me, I'm a father. The motivation for me is that my kids get saved.
Yeah.
And the same is for these pastors. When you are 3-4 years old, you go by with mom and dad, whatever they do. But when you're 12 and when you're 14, if you're the only one, there's no other your age, that is a concern that we will lose our children.
Mm-hmm.
And we do. COVID hit us very hard. We had some youth work going on with kids from various places in Norway. That COVID lockdown, we didn't maintain the relationship between the young ones, and then we were not able to reestablish it.
Mm-hmm.
That was very, very painful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, when you're in your teenage years, your friends have the biggest influence over you.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
But we're very, very thankful for the more mature adults that we have Corpus Christi in Europe. That's a summer camp
mm-hmm.
with liturgy and good preaching for Confessional Lutherans from all Europe. And that has meant very much to our young people. Yeah.
Have you gotten a lot of support from other European Lutheran churches, confessional Lutheran churches?
I mean, we are friendly with each other, but I think, I don't think there are any others that grow as fast as us. We grow 20% a year, 4 years in a row.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also we have as many pastors now as your British sister church.
Really?
Yeah. But I mean, we have part-time pastors, they have full-time pastors, okay?
Yeah.
But still, I mean, we are something now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So one question I had, and before I forget it, close communion.
Yes.
We talked about that a little bit, and to kind of frame this, I had mentioned to you earlier an article that was written that I had never thought about it in this way, but it was, it kind of struck a nerve with me in that, the author was talking about kind of this blatant open communion that's sometimes practiced, right? Like it's
always,
at different congregations and such. And obviously there's a whole spectrum there and whatnot. But he framed it as, okay, we kind of, he's accusing and saying, all right, we flippantly kind of just do this open communion. And meanwhile, we've got brothers and sisters in other areas of the world that are fighting on the front lines, these battles over Lutheranism, right? And they've got scars. They're dealing with these battles, they're understanding and living through what happens when we take theology lightly and kind of say, well, but we all love Jesus, right? Okay, good. We're all, we're good to go, whatever. And you're one of those individuals that have been on that front line now for quite some time. And I'm just interested in what you think about that framing of kind of looking at open communion as, in some ways, a betrayal of brothers and sisters who are fighting fights, and then we kind of in our comfortableness say, but it's not that big of a deal, right? In our kind of suburban oasis.
Well, our background, our context, where we come from, is open communion, Church of Norway. So it means that with this re-establishment of the Confessional Lutheran Church in Norway, you had to go back to our roots.
Mm-hmm.
Since we have young people in our church that become members, their parents come to visit and may be very upset that the communion is not for them.
Mm-hmm.
So we present in the beginning that you have to speak to a pastor first, and there's always a reaction, always.
Mm-hmm.
But it has saved us from trouble. I mean, Church of Norway has one of their branches, which is an organization called the Missions of the Cities, which is a kind of a liberal branch of Church of Norway. They have communion service outside the railway station. Everyone can come, Muslim, Hindu, whoever.
Really?
Yeah.
Muslim and Hindu?
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Anyone can come.
Yeah.
That is open.
Yeah.
Very open.
It's very open.
So we have experienced the same, that I both experienced a Hindu and a Muslim who came to us and wanted communion.
Mm-hmm.
So we found out and I use that as an example to these people who are upset, to saying, we cannot have a communion for everyone if we don't share the faith.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we need to find first a process to find out that we share the same faith. And then we do have pastoral discretion.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But we should use it carefully.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's all interesting that we get such reaction to our communion when some of the people who are reflecting on joining the Catholic Church, and they are close communion.
Yeah.
But we have discovered that we are practicing the close communion that the Catholics say they do, but they don't do.
Yeah.
Because in reality, there is no system to deal with the close communion. It's you can come forward, whoever. There's no control
mm-hmm.
in that.
Yeah. I've experienced. I mean, we were on vacation not too long ago. We were in an area where there wasn't a Lutheran church within any reasonable driving distance. I think it was an hour and a half, hour 45 or something. Right. And so we went to I'll usually go to like a Catholic mass or whatever because, the liturgy is still beautiful and whatnot. And sometimes there's good preaching, and it was a good sermon. Yeah. And then communion came up, and obviously we didn't commune, right? So we went up and received a blessing. But yeah, they didn't, I don't think they had any announcement.
No.
Or anything like that. I don't even think they had bulletins. So yeah, there wasn't any kind of communication on that front. But also, I mean, it is sometimes tough for a Catholic church because, for a Lutheran church, we're very membership focused, right?
Yes.
Like you go to your church.
Right.
A lot of my Catholic friends, like, if they live in a city or something, like they've got 3 or 4 churches they go to, right? And they might be like, well, let's go to St. Benedict's today, or let's go to St. Jerome's today, or whatever, right? So they'll bounce around more. So it does, and I'm not trying to excuse it per se, but I'm just saying, it seems like they've got just more of a free-flowing type community to whereas, at a normal-sized LCMS church, you can kind of identify your visitors here pretty quickly. Right?
Okay, well, this is interesting because according to what I understand of the Catholic Church, there's actually geographical boundaries saying what church you belong to.
Oh, really?
Depending on what the address is of your home.
Okay, maybe that's here. I haven't heard about that, but yeah.
Yeah, so it means that, it means that you have to ask your own priest when you are going to be for the wedding.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
you can't go shop around.
No, you cannot. And actually, this is, since we belong to the West Nordic tradition,
mm-hmm.
The West Nordic Lutheran tradition adopted the canonic law and made it Lutheran. We do it. So in our bylaws or in the canonic laws of us, we have the saying that if we get 2 congregations in Oslo, there will be a geographical line there defining where do you belong. It doesn't mean that you're forced to go to that church, but you have no voting rights, no nothing, except where you live.
So you can attend, but you can't be a member.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we have put in that the bishop can allow you to connect to the other. People divorce and they don't want to go to the same church as their ex because of pain. And then there will be ways that we
pastoral
will accept
discretion.
Yes.
Yeah. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of that? I mean, I can think of a couple off the top of my head, but
yeah.
Mm-hmm. You want me to go first?
Advantages and disadvantages with our system
of that structure. Yeah.
Well, in our case, we have just asked what is our history. I mean, we're not inventing anything.
Mm-hmm.
We're just continuing what is our history of 500 years and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
This is how church life was in our part of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like that it pushes back against kind of church shopping. We're in a saturated area. I grew up in Fort Wayne. That's a saturated area where there's churches, all Lutheran LCMS churches all over the place, right? And that's always one of the things where I'm always wary of when someone comes to join our church here, right? And it's like, okay, well, why are you leaving, right? And perhaps you talk to the previous pastor and such, but there's always at least a little bit of guilt where we have a school, so sometimes I can understand for a family they say, well, my kids are going here, they want to. We want our kids to go to the church where their school is and such. But, it is healthy if you can kind of push back against church shopping.
Yes.
Right. Sometimes there's a valid reason if someone's doing something really goofy or something like that. But if you're just chasing a preacher or chasing a certain preference or a program or something like that, that's not healthy. And it does diminish the other churches that might not have those kind of resources to do those types of things. And then they never get built up. Right.
Right. Well, in our case, you would have to use the airplane if you would.
Yes.
Go from one church to the other.
Yeah.
We fly all the time.
Yeah.
Between the congregations.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break, and then we can hop back in.
Okay.
All right. And Bennett says we are back, and so we'll pivot a little bit here because you've had 10 years of unique experience, as you said, at a church that's older than the LCMS is. Is it the largest Lutheran church or mission outreach?
It's mission.
Mission. Okay. So in Jerusalem, right?
Well,
or in Israel.
In the end, 1844, the Norwegian mission to the Jews was started. Mm-hmm. That's 2 years after the first mission to the Gentiles was started by the same people. So in 1842, a group of people started Gentile mission from Norway. 2 years later, they started mission to the Jews. At that time, not a single Jew lived in Norway. It was against our constitution.
Interesting.
But they had the Bible saying the gospel is the power of salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first, and then for the Gentiles. So this mission soon got Karl Paul Kaspari, the German Confessional Lutheran Jew, who became a professor of theology in Oslo. He became their chairman for a long time of history. So they, in the beginning, started supporting other missions in Europe to reach out to the Jews. And then they had their own mission in Hungary and Romania. And after the Second World War, they discovered that the members of their congregation from Romania had moved to Israel. And they continued the work with those in Israel and seeked a place to worship, and were handed over from the Lutheran World Federation church property that was confiscated during the war and given to Israel by the British in 1948. And Israel says, we're a Jewish state, we don't want to own church. But they didn't want to give it back to the Germans.
Yeah.
So what did they do? They gave it to the Lutheran World Federation. So there were empty buildings there, and when the Norwegian mission needed place to worship, the Lutheran World Federation say, here, you can take care of it. You're the responsible for these now.
And that's in 1948 that happened?
Correct.
Okay. Is it a beautiful church?
Well, they had two church buildings or properties, the one in Haifa and the one in Tel Aviv. So the one in Tel Aviv is Emmanuel Church, and you find nice pictures of it.
Can you pull that up, Bennett? I just want to see what this church looks like.
Emmanuel Church, Tel Aviv.
With an I or an E?
I. You will, that's the, yeah. It's built approximately the same time as the Redeemer Church in Old City of Jerusalem.
Okay.
So that's the same age. There you have the pictures of it, different pictures. So I have preached there beautiful. A number of times. It's an historic part of the city. So there are many local Israeli tourists there. The glass art there is a Norwegian artist that made it later.
That one, the Facebook one there? Yeah.
Yes.
Is that the picture too with the right to the left of this one, where it's got the pipe organ?
That's in the back of inside the church.
Yeah,
yes.
That's beautiful.
So it's a small church. It looks bigger on the picture. It's a small church. But anyway, that's one of the two church buildings, properties. So they were, since 1948, they've had worship services there, and then allow others then to have worship services there. They rent out to anyone that they need to share a Trinitarian theology.
Okay.
But in Israel, Israel authorities will not allow any new church building. So
Really?
Yes.
You cannot build a Christian church in Israel today?
No, you are allowed to use what you have. So it means there is a friendly help to each other to provide space to worship for different groups, Pentecostal from Ghana or wherever.
Yeah.
So anyway, this Norwegian mission, they had work in Haifa and in Tel Aviv, and then they wanted also to establish a theological education by extension program for their congregation members and for the rest of the Messianic movement. So that's why Kaspari Center for Biblical and Jewish Studies was established in memory of this famous Kaspari. It was established in Jerusalem. So I got... and it had a pretty important standing. It was really something in Church of Norway. It was on such a level that I never considered it to be relevant for me, but I was asked to come, and I accepted, since they gave me 2 years, full years of training. So I did both Fuller School of World Mission, some courses, but I also did 1 year at Hebrew University, Midrash, Talmud, and all that.
Yeah.
In order to prepare. So that's why I was there, a part of this mission or this organization that had so long history.
What kind of training do they do? So what's those 2 years, especially at the Midrash school?
Well, we didn't do that training. There was me going to the university before to learn Judaism.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. No,
So you're learning Judaism from the inside.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I did the Talmud together with a rabbi, today a rabbi in the U.S. We were sitting together, and Talmud is in Aramaic. You know, I really am not fond of learning languages, and it was illegal to use Hebrew translation of the Aramaic.
Really?
In our class, yes.
Huh.
I had headache. And, you know, if you know Talmud, you know there is, in the middle there is a Rashi, which is a famous Jewish scholar. But he comments in Hebrew, but he has another alphabet, which means you learn that alphabet extremely fast in order to decipher the text. And the text is without question mark. You don't know if this is a question or statement in the text. You read back and forth. I had a hard time. Anyway, that was just to prepare me for what context I was going into. The programs we did was, the intention was to provide theological education by extension, and material was made for it. 2 of the books were so good that I organized later in my time them to be published in the U.S., and it became the book In the Shadow of the Temple by Skarsone. If you have not read it, you would love it.
In the Shadow of the Temple.
In the Shadow of the Temple. It's breathtaking. And I'm very glad. And it became actually, for some time, a textbook for some of the courses at Concordia Seminary at Fort Wayne. So that's why it was reprinted over. Yeah. So anyway, it showed the quality of some of the material. That 10 years after we published it there, it became a good book for the U.S. market.
Yeah.
Anyway, and we had those courses. It went well in the beginning. Later on, it became a little crowded. Every Messianic congregation, more or less, wanted to start a study center for the whole Messianic movement. Okay, if you have 50 congregations or 20, and there are 20 centers, and everyone needs to show in their newsletters that we are serving people, you need to make it very cheap. You know, it's unhealthy, the whole thing. So it got a little crowded there and decrease in the program. What the other thing we did was research program. The history of Jewish believers from antiquity to modern times was a study project. The first book for the first 500 years is published. The second book is published online. That was a very, very important book because it has to do with the paradigm. The paradigm is that a Jew cannot believe in Jesus. And that paradigm, the church and the synagogue was agreed on. I mean,
the Jews say, we cannot confess Jesus as Christ.
Well, the option was either to be a Jew who says no to Jesus or to be a Christian who says no to the Jewish background. You know, what is served for Easter Day dinner in the U.S.?
Ham.
Right.
Yeah.
Historic reason for that is to force new converts of Jewish background to spit in the face of their parents.
Yeah. That's interesting. I did not know that.
So there was a Jewish Christian is like a square circle. And both the synagogue and the church agreed on that. We need to keep it that way. Chrysostomos is one of those, arguing very much against Christians and Jews having anything to do with each other. But this research is showing there were always Jews who believed in Jesus, Jews coming to faith in Jesus. And that research project is important because it provides for a paradigm shift. Because when the one is saying a Jew cannot believe in Jesus because Jews have never believed in Jesus, well, this is a story of Jews who really believed in Jesus. Yeah. And in the beginning, we were a Jewish group. We just became a majority in it, we non-Christian, the non-Jews. All of us who are. But theologically speaking, half of us are Jews and half of us are non-Jews, and we're one in the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't need to have equal identity. A man is a man and a woman is a woman. And when living in Israel, when my son was born, people ask, are you going to have him circumcised?
Mm-hmm.
And I know those who want their son circumcised because they don't want trouble in the shower when they do sports.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, we may, for health reasons, may do it, but will not be on the 8th day.
Yeah.
Because we are Gentiles that we're called to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, so we had programs for kind of messianic congregations and different courses that were run more before my time. Then we have a research project. We did also start up something we call the Sabbath School Conference, where they could share the program, what the different ones did. It was kind of an evangelical, not confessional at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have courses to church leaders and Lutheran church leaders, Lutheran mission leaders from around the world of the Jewish roots of the Christian faith,
mm-hmm.
which I think is a very powerful way to help the young churches to understand we are not the daughter church of this Norwegian or American church. We are sister churches. We're all daughter churches to the original church in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, this is one of the most important things, if we can do it, to have such kind of conferences also for indigenous Lutheran congregations
mm-hmm.
that feel that Christianity is forced on them from the big society, for them to realize, no, it's not from Chicago or Oslo that the gospel came to us, it's from Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
It's the gospel in Jerusalem that is to be contextualized in our country, not a German thing.
Yeah. So what would, some of these books and such that you mentioned here. So let's say I were walking in your shoes, right? So let's say I'm going to become a missionary in Israel, right? And you're going to give me some of these books, and your goal is to prepare me to create some context so that I can understand what I'm walking into. And it sounds like some of that study is going to help you understand, what's the Talmud say? What do modern day Orthodox Jews actually believe, right? So you can understand the context, and then how to speak to that. Walk me through, what are some of the things that I'm going to learn as I go through this training program with you?
Well, one thing you would learn is that if you had twins doing the same thing in Japan and in Israel, the one in Japan would receive respect from society, and Israel will consider you like a spy, the one that you can't trust.
If your twins are Christian.
Now, I mean, you can do two people doing the same thing in two different contexts.
Mm-hmm.
So the name missionary in Israel means that you are a person that is using all kind of immoral means in order to convert people.
Mm-hmm.
So when people ask me, are you a missionary? I said, I'll tell you what I do. And you find the right word for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is concept in the Jewish environment that if you, that we lure people, we pay people to change. I mean, there is, I was asked once in a taxi in Tel Aviv how much money I was willing to pay him to convert to Christianity. I said, I have no money for that. I can tell you about Jesus if you want to.
Yeah.
But he was a Jew.
Uh-huh.
But that is, in Israel, there is a law saying that you cannot share the gospel with anyone under the age of 16.
Really?
Yeah. So if you have any young ones coming to church that don't come with their family, you need to see how old are you. And then if you're too young, you say you have to leave.
Wow.
You cannot be in this room. The other thing is you're not allowed to buy converts. And some Orthodox communities are angry with the police because they say that the police is doing a lousy job. They haven't arrested anyone till now. They're convinced they are
buying converts.
Oh, but the police is doing a lousy job since they haven't taken anyone.
Yeah.
Somehow they haven't realized there is no money going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it is about sharing about Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I do, I am myself. I very often it's people approaching me asking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There are more people with Jewish background coming to faith in Jesus in the U.S. than in Israel. When I lived here, doing fundraising for the Kaspari Center in Jerusalem, every church I visited, people came to me and said, you know what, we have Jewish background. My guess is at that time there were more people with Jewish background in the Missouri Synod than in all the Messianic movement in Israel combined.
Wow.
Now, my guess, and I think it's the same guess of Jews for Jesus, is 90% of all Jews who come to faith in Jesus are members of regular churches like yours. I would not be surprised if there weren't one or two or three in your church with that background.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why I belong to those who say that we shouldn't be too focused on what is called the Messianic movement.
Mm-hmm.
Jewish believers in Jesus are in three different places. They are in regular churches, 90% roughly. Then you have those who are in the Messianic congregations in North America and other places. They are very Jewish in style with stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Majority are non-Jews.
They go there, yeah.
They go there, they wish they were Jewish.
Yeah.
And the more, okay. And thirdly, you have what's called the Messianic movement in Israel. That is less Jewish, but very Israeli.
What's that mean?
It means that the identity is being a part of Israeli society. You served in the army, but the thing with the synagogue stuff is not that prominent there as it is in the Messianic movement in the U.S. A Messianic congregation here has to be different than yours. How do you do that? You put on Jewish symbols.
Mm-hmm.
In Israel, everything is Jewish. And the place where you have most of the Jewish elements, of course, is the synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
But synagogue doesn't necessarily have a good connotation for a number of Israelis.
Because they're more secularized? Is that why?
They're secularized, and for some of the Israelis, synagogue is a part of the rotten establishment. For some of them,
kind of attached, almost like political.
While here is the synagogue is a way where you can maintain your identity. You don't need the synagogue to remain your identity in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So it means in the Messianic movement in Israel, I would call the Hebrew Evangelical Church. That's how it's a congregationalistic structure. So,
what kind of inroads work and what kind of inroads do not work?
With what?
With let's say converting Jews. So money does not seem to work.
Well, no, money doesn't work. I mean, what is very important is in the forehead of me, people will see a big M, missionary danger.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we actually on the door of our center during the periods, sometimes we had sticker put in every night with a skull and where it says in Hebrew, danger, mission, the purpose of this organization is to eliminate the Jewish people. So the job of our volunteer was to put butter on the door, on the sign, before they left for work that day.
Mm-hmm.
And then next morning, the sticker wouldn't stick, so we could take it off easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is having an impact is for Israelis traveling different places, and they get to know regular Christian people that are friendly with them and who are happy to share their faith. And people understand, hey, you're not paid for anything of this. I mean, I am paid.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big M in my forehead.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I just share with those who want to hear. I don't force myself on anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do a hitchhiking in North America, if you can hitchhike, I don't know, or in
Probably
you do
not
some,
advisable. Yeah.
okay. Anyway, you meet someone somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and you enter a friendly talk, and that will be remembered.
Mm-hmm.
As I heard someone doing research saying that in very many of the Israelis who come to faith in Jesus, there is some place in their story that the regular non-Jewish Christians shared faith with them.
Mm-hmm.
And for a Jew, it is less troublesome to hear the story of how you met Jesus, what Jesus means for you, to hear it from you than from a Messianic Jew.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's okay that you're a Christian. I can hear how it is your story.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the danger is when I realize, hey, this can be me. I think, have you read the book Betrayed?
No. Mm-mm.
I recommend that to people. The book Betrayed is very easy to read. It is the story of a man who has experienced his daughter, a Jewish man, his daughter became Christian. And then you follow his story. Betrayed by Stan Telcher, I think his name is. That is one of the best introductions to all this. But of course, we as Western Christians have a long history of, we've done many bad things. We have a history of anti-Judaism. I would distinguish between anti-Semitism and anti-Judaism. Anti-Semitism goes against the ethnicity. Anti-Judaism is going against the Jewish identity. So it means that for Hitler, the problem was your bloodline. You had you were genetic pollution. That's why you had to be eliminated. So the fix was killing you. In Christian history, the fix was baptizing. And then you stopped living Jewish. And of course, the Inquisition was against Jesus-believing Jews. They needed to check that they really had stopped living Jewish. And you probably know the stories. I mean, they have jokes from Jewish jokes. Abraham, who is caught by the spies watching him on Friday as he eats chicken, and you're supposed not to have meat, and said, "You had chicken?" No, I had fish. You had chicken. And I think you have another version here, the same one. But then he said, "I did what you taught me. I poured water over it 3 times and said, now you're chicken, now you're chicken, now you're chicken." The way that he now was baptized. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we have a very sad story that we should admit. Luther is saying bad stuff. If we just defend what Luther is saying, we can explain what Luther said, but if we just defend everything he said, we're in trouble when it comes to interacting with Jewish people for a good reason. That's why the work I'm involved with in Israel, we have a church work that we support since 2018, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Israel, that the Ingrian Church is in charge of, but in the local name is the Concordia Church for the congregation. The reason is we don't want it to be linked to Luther and what he's saying. We want to link it to a theology, a confession. And of course they say, "Oh, you can't trick us. We know it's Luther." And I say, "Yeah, it's Luther, but we're showing that way that the person Luther is not the point. The point is the theology that is in the Lutheran confessions."
Are there elements of what would be a good way to put it? I don't know if confusion is the right word. Are there misconceptions that we have of Israel, of the Jews that are living there, of what they believe, of how they understand Christianity? What are some misconceptions?
From here, I don't know. I mean, what I see is that I have 2 groups I don't feel very at home with. The one is the group that blames Israel for everything. I mean, to just put it straight. For me, the state of Israel is not theological, theological significance.
Right. Not Christian Zionism.
No.
Right.
No. It is a state. I cannot see that it is predicted in the Old Testament, this state.
Yeah.
Because where in the Old Testament is this prediction of a state that is causing trouble for those who want to follow Jesus, the Messiah?
Mm-hmm.
There's no, I hear other nice stories about receiving him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is not happening now. But still, it seems to me that Israel from some groups is getting a more harsh treatment than the countries around them that they are in conflict with.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I have the Christian Zionists and others. For them, Israel is like a god.
Yeah.
And if you see how many abortions is done in Israel, and Tel Aviv is the gay capital of the Mediterranean.
I
mean, an Israeli society is full of tension. So, but I don't need to agree with people on politics. If we can agree that the gospel is the power of salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first and then for the Gentiles. They need the gospel. And the gospel is never a reward for nice behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Then I couldn't be saved.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to put it.
So, and they're loved for the sake of the fathers. Are Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Not because of their own deeds. And I'm not. And people say, perhaps God has given up the Jewish people. And I said, how do I then know he hasn't given up me and my kids? So, but what Israel is very much in the media, and there's great suffering for the Palestinian people, terrible suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And they are being used by everyone. I mean, their neighbor countries, Arab neighbor countries, are using them like tools in the big political things. I mean, I feel very, very sorry for that people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm into that.
Yeah.
So what do you see kind of looking out, right? So you've got, I mean, we've hit on a handful of different things. You know, the Lutheran Church in Norway, your experiences there, what you see in broader Europe, some of those trends. Then you mentioned, things in like Palestine and Israel. Obviously, the nation's rage, this is not new. But where do you see kind of things going on the Christian front here in the future here?
Where is here? U.S.?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I guess globally, right? Do you see any kind of trends even globally? Because we've focused on certainly kind of where we see things going in Norway, in Iceland. But do you see any other kind of trends worldwide?
I probably don't have put enough time into finding out.
Yeah.
It takes its energy and time to do the church building. Mm-hmm. Develop church work.
Yeah.
As we do. So I don't think I have very good answers to your question. And what I do know is that things are going better in other parts of the world than us. At the same time, God let me and us be born in this time of history in our part of the world for a purpose. And it is possible to get saved. And I don't want my kids to hear the story that everything was better before. It's not their fault that they're born now. And Jesus is strong enough to keep us, save us, and to keep us in a true faith everlasting. So everything I read seems to show that Africa and other parts of the world are taking over, numeric.
Mm-hmm.
And things were better before in my parts of the world. Okay. But somehow there is a calling for me to be where I am and do the best I can. And I am encouraged by the trends we see
Mm-hmm.
I really am. I think there can be a change. But I would have had to do exact the same without these trends.
Mm-hmm.
It's a calling to, and that is why I think Jesus says, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I in their midst. I'm telling my people, these are the words of Jesus to the micro congregations that we establish. When we worship 3, I said, I have a word from Jesus for us today. I think that's for worship groups. And if we're not willing to do worship for small groups in Europe, there's no hope. Because there's no 20, etc. Even I know there's 20 in Africa and other places. What I am afraid of is if we can't change they try to steal our kids through school.
Yeah.
That scared me when I was a teacher for some months 2 years ago. I discovered this pride ideology is entering every textbook. You print new textbook in mathematics, you will get examples, mother and mother together with their shared son, and they buy ice cream, big, small, etc. And they put it into every subject. And for the kid, everything they're taught, they will be absorbed. They're so easy to form. So I am, that's my fear for the future. I know, and with a very hefty taxation on us in Norway, it's how to do homeschooling and afford it.
Is it legal there?
It's legal,
it is
unlike
legal.
Sweden.
Okay, yeah.
It's legal.
Mm-hmm.
Illegal in Sweden.
Yeah. Man, what a tyrannical control. You can't even educate your kids.
Is that something?
Yeah.
So, and also, it's illegal also to even pray with people for handling the same-sex feelings.
In Norway or
yes,
in Sweden?
It's Norway.
In both. Okay.
Yeah, the very strict rules. And when people ask for help to go to at least get help to live with the feelings they have, I need to know what country I can send them to get help.
Wow. Could they do like online? Could they meet with a counselor from America, for instance?
Perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
But these are the things we are facing now. And we have actually people that we wanted to some boards that worship with us, and they're not willing to be on the board because they will be in trouble in their business.
Mm-hmm. That's real persecution.
It is at least harassment.
Yeah. Well, your note about the kids, that's a rallying call.
Yeah.
You know, that's one to really put out there to say.
Yes.
You want to protect the children? You want to protect your next generation?
Yeah.
You know, we got to go to battle here. We have to do what we can with the time that's given to us.
Yes. It frightened me when I saw 2 years ago.
Yeah. Well, it's seeping in here too.
Yeah.
You know, more and more. I don't know if it'll start to boomerang back. I don't think so. Well, maybe perhaps, but not yet. Not today. It's not boomeranging. But yeah, even this is a very conservative, the Christian ethos is still strong where we're at, Carver County, Minnesota. Lutheran ethos is very strong. But you go to the public schools, you know, and yeah, even Christian, well, even textbooks that would be used by Christian schools, you know, every time those new updates come out, they're in more and more, and they're subversive. Sometimes they're obvious, you know, or it's like two moms and a kid or whatever, but it's the subversive, which is way more difficult.
Yeah.
You know, a couple years ago, I looked through, I think, a third grade textbook.
Yes.
You know, and this one didn't have any of those overt, but it had so many, just the way, the stories that they choose, the narratives that they're pushing an ideology in a way that isn't, it's almost more dangerous because you can you can point to and use this as an example. You can say, okay, listen, kids, like, some people believe this, but here's why we don't believe this. And you maybe use the obvious thing as a teaching tool. You can't really do that in these subversive stories. So stories structure they form your value structures.
Yeah, they do.
What kind of heroes, how do the heroes behave? How do the villains behave? What are their characteristics? You don't have to teach that. The story just imparts that on the child, right? Which is why old fairy tales are so important, right? Where they still had this objective understanding of what virtue and vice looks like. And they sought out to train a young child to understand these, identify them, love one and abhor the other. Well, now the virtues and vices are completely different, and you can actually even track that in the West to where you can say, okay, you've got your ancient understandings of vice and virtues, and there's different lists. I like the 7 deadly sins. I think that's kind of a good anchor that's used for a long time in Christian history, and you can understand what those are. And then you get to the Enlightenment, and you see someone like Hume, for instance, and all of a sudden virtue is really mostly about economics, and then he takes something like pride, which is either the deadliest of the sins or it's the base by which all the other sins flow from, like pride is almost akin to sin itself. And then he takes pride and he says, well, pride has really to do with just being at peace with yourself and the decisions you make. So pride ends up becoming not a vice, but a virtue, right? So you see that shift. And then you can see where that's the groundwork laid for even like the pride movement today, where what's the whole movement? It's, well, this is who you are and your job is to be at peace with these inner feelings. And so you need to affirm it and others need to affirm it, right? So point being, it's all of this subversive work, these different understandings of vice and virtue and what to strive towards. And that's what scares me with education for children, because you can take a Lutheran school and they can look at a textbook and they can say, oh, it said 1 billion years. Let's skip over those pages, or let's not assign that reading or whatever. Or they can look at it and they can say, well, there's 2 dads. Like, maybe it's 2 brothers, but it looks like it's 2 dads. Like, let's just skip this. Those are obvious ones, but no one's trained. I remember asking Dr. Ryan McPherson, but he's does a bunch of, at the college level, looking over curriculums and stuff. And I was like, do you think you could go into a textbook and like teach from it in such a way that you could teach past all of the subversive things? And he said, not a chance. Like, it's built into the structure and the DNA. So yeah, that's what frightens me.
Yeah. It frightens me also.
Yeah. Well, like you said, God does not leave us as orphans, and he puts us at a time and place so that we have a battle to fight. And,
yes.
Yeah. And he doesn't give us battles that that are hopeless.
No.
Right?
No.
Well, anything else you want to share, Bishop?
Well, I want to thank you and the rest of the Missouri Synod for being of help for young churches like ours, and then especially through the Concordia seminaries. That's what I'm very, very thankful for.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bishop. And yeah, I look forward to keeping in contact and hearing how things are going and finding out ways that we can help.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, God bless your work.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.